I am overjoyed that religious liberty has been preserved in Oklahoma.
Is that the ruling? Is there any significance to it being a tie and maybe indications for the future?
No, I think as it relates to Oklahoma, the Oklahoma Supreme Court ruled that you can't violate the separation of church and state, and the Supreme Court affirmed it through the 4-4 tie.
Does that, there's been some suggestions that this would go to another state. There would be another test case to get it
Right.
there.
This is binding precedent on Oklahoma. Other states are free to try to attack the Constitution if they so wish. Hopefully they have attorneys general with integrity, like Oklahoma does.
Did it make a difference, you think, our Constitution seems to be very clear on this issue.
Yes.
Was that the difference?
I think certainly that was meaningful, but also I think that a plurality of the court grasped the fact that Oklahoma's charter school system is 100% wholly controlled by the state. So when you form the school, fund the school, oversee the school, the teachers are eligible for retirement on the state teachers system, the board and administration are subject to open records, open meetings. It is a state entity. And our Constitution and frankly the federal Constitution are unambiguous. We cannot establish religion, and that's what this is. To some that juxtapose, there's a religious hospital that receives state and federal funding, yes, but that hospital exists independent of the state and the federal government. St. Isidore Charter Public School would not exist but for the state creating it. And I think that was grasped by the 4, and I think that the 4 who voted against it simply did not grasp that very subtle but significant distinction.
Is it correct that we won't know who the 4 and 4 were?
We will not know. I suppose it was Chief Justice Roberts who stood with the Constitution in Oklahoma, and that 4 of his colleagues did not. And I think they're excellent jurists, but I don't think they fully grasped the subtleties of the charter school program.
Is there, this is binding precedent on Oklahoma, so there's no avenue for this case, this situation to come again before a court?
Oh, I'm certain that this governor in the next 19 months will go find some Wiccan school or satanic school to make application so he can prove his point. But this Attorney General will stand with religious liberty until my last dying breath. We have to have separation of church and state so that we, as citizens and parents, can indoctrinate our children in our faith and instruct them on how we believe, not a teacher. I want my teachers to teach reading, that would be lovely, math, science, history. Let the parent drive the religious choices of their children.
Do you think, even though this case was simply about the Catholics and their desire to do this online public school, do you really think that would have opened the door, or that it would have created these other schools, led to the creation of it?
Hey, if it's good for one, it's good for all. And I think if the Supreme Court had decided to basically erode the separation of church and state, then we would find a patchwork of charter public schools across the United States. And I think in Oklahoma, we would quickly have applicants that were qualified, but of a religious bent that would make the average citizen in Oklahoma's head explode. And I don't think the governor woke up to history in 2018 and doesn't fully grasp the Constitution or the ramifications of our Constitution. And that's why it's so important to always elect an Attorney General who is steeped in the law and has high integrity and convictions.
While some are worried primarily about the wall separation between church and state, others are worried about a Christian nationalist push in government. Did you see that in this?
Well, no, I see that there are those that would like to eviscerate the separation of church and state, and they're thinking short-sighted. They're thinking we are predominantly a Christian nation and that we need to have Christian schools. But if you open the door to Christian schools, you've opened the door to radical Sharia schools, Wiccan schools, satanic schools, you name the variety of sects of religion out there, and we will be funding them. And I don't think the average taxpayer in Oklahoma wants to do that.
What else are you doing? What other cases? What else is there does the state have other issues before the Supreme Court?
So actually, the state of Oklahoma had 3 cases before this Supreme Court this year, and it's amazing. We won on Richard Glossop, who was, I confessed, ever, and we are not now putting him in the death chamber under inappropriate pretext. He will be convicted, litigated. We are going to set him for trial this fall, and he'll have a fair trial, but probably the same result. But Oklahoma won there. We have an EPA case that was argued in March that will probably be ruled in our favor by June. And then, of course, the separation of church and state, which with a 4-4 tie shows a victory for Oklahoma.
Does that, do you think other states will do this and find some avenue to be more successful?
I think that so long it's the Catholic Church pushing it, then I think Amy Coney Barrett will continue to be recused, and that will always be the same result, 4-4. I think if it's somebody other than a Catholic Church, I give Justice Barrett high marks in her ability to think independently of politics, and I believe that the verdict would be 5-4 in favor of the church, in favor of the separation of church and state.